Spade and Archer. Samuel Spade's jaw was long and bony, his chin a jutting V under the more flexible V of his mouth. His nostrils curved back to make another, smaller, V. His yellow-gray eyes were horizontal. The V motif was picked up again by thickish brows rising outward from twin creases above a hooked nose, and his pale brown hair grew down, from high flat temples, in a point on his forehead. He looked rather pleasantly like a blonde Satan. He said to Effie Perrine, "Yes, sweetheart?" She was a lanky, sunburned girl whose tan dress of thin woolen stuff clung to her with an effect of dampness. Her eyes were brown and playful in a shiny, boyish face. She finished shutting the door behind her, leaned against it, and said, "There's a girl wants to see you. Her name's Wonderly. A customer? I guess so. You'll want to see her anyway. She's a knockout." "Shoo her in, darling," said Spade. "Shoo her in." Effie Perrine opened the door again, following it back into the outer office, standing with a hand on the knob while saying, "Will you come in, Miss Wonderly?" A voice said, "Thank you," so softly that only the purest articulation made the words intelligible, and a young woman came through the doorway. She advanced slowly, with tentative steps, looking at Spade with cobalt blue eyes that were both shy and probing. She was tall and pliantly slender, without angularity anywhere. Her body was erect and high-breasted, her legs long, her hands and feet narrow. She wore 2 shades of blue that had been selected because of her eyes. The hair curling from under her blue hat was darkly red, her full lips more brightly red. White teeth glistened in the crescent her timid smile made. Spade rose, bowing and indicating with a thick-fingered hand the oaken armchair beside his desk. He was quite 6 feet tall. The steep, rounded slope of his shoulders made his body seem almost comical, no broader than it was thick, and kept his freshly pressed gray coat from fitting very well. Miss Wonderly murmured, "Thank you," softly as before, and sat down on the edge of the chair's wooden seat. Spade sank into his swivel chair, made a quarter turn to face her, and smiled politely. He smiled without separating his lips. All the V's in his face grew longer. The tappity-tap-tap and the thin bell and muffled whir of Effie Perrine's typewriting came through the closed door. Somewhere in a neighboring office, a power-driven machine vibrated dully. On Spade's desk, a limp cigarette smoldered in a brass tray filled with the remains of limp cigarettes. Ragged gray flakes of cigarette ash dotted the yellow top of the desk and the green blotter and the papers that were there. A buff curtained window, 8 or 10 inches open, let in from the court a current of air faintly scented with ammonia. The ashes on the desk twitched and crawled in the current. Miss Wonderly watched the gray flakes twitch and crawl. Her eyes were uneasy. She sat on the very edge of the chair. Her feet were flat on the floor, as if she were about to rise. Her hands in dark gloves clasped a flat, dark handbag in her lap. Spade rocked back in his chair and asked, "Now what can I do for you, Miss Wonderly?" She caught her breath and looked at him. She swallowed and said hurriedly, "Could you? I thought. That is." Then she tortured her lower lip with glistening teeth and said nothing. Only her dark eyes spoke now, pleading. Spade smiled and nodded as if he understood her, but pleasantly, as if nothing serious were involved. He said, "Suppose you tell me about it, from the beginning, and then we'll know what needs doing. Better begin as far back as you can." "That was in New York." "Yes. I don't know where she met him. I don't know where in New York. She's 5 years younger than I. Only 17, and we didn't have the same friends. I don't suppose we've ever been as close as sisters should be. Mama and Papa are in Europe. It would kill them. I've got to get her back before they come home." "Yes," he said. "They're coming home the 1st of the month." Spade's eyes brightened. "Then we've 2 weeks," he said. I didn't know what she had done until her letter came. I was frantic. Her lips trembled. Her hands mashed the dark handbag in her lap. I was too afraid she had done something like this to go to the police, and the fear that something had happened to her kept urging me to go. There wasn't anyone I could go to for advice. I didn't know what to do. What could I do? "Nothing, of course," Spade said. "But then her letter came?" "Yes, and I sent her a telegram asking her to come home. I sent it to general delivery here. That was the only address she gave me. I waited a whole week, but no answer came, not another word from her. And Mama and Papa's return was drawing nearer and nearer. So I came to San Francisco to get her. I wrote her I was coming. I shouldn't have done that, should I? Maybe not. It's not always easy to know what to do. You haven't found her? No, I haven't. I wrote her that I would go to the St. Mark, and I begged her to come and let me talk to her even if she didn't intend to go home with me. But she didn't come. I waited 3 days, and she didn't come, didn't even send me a message of any sort. Spade nodded his blonde Satan's head, frowned sympathetically, and tightened his lips together. It was horrible, Miss Wonderly said, trying to smile. I couldn't sit there like that, waiting, not knowing what had happened to her, what might be happening to her. She stopped trying to smile. She shuddered. The only address I had was general delivery. I wrote her another letter, and yesterday afternoon I went to the post office. I stayed there until after dark, but I didn't see her. I went there again this morning, and still didn't see Corinne, but I saw Floyd Thursby. Spade nodded again. His frown went away. In its place came a look of sharp attentiveness. He wouldn't tell me where Corinne was, she went on, hopelessly. He wouldn't tell me anything, except that she was well and happy. But how can I believe that? That is what he would tell me anyhow, isn't it? Sure, Spade agreed. But it might be true. I hope it is. I do hope it is, she exclaimed. But I can't go back home like this, without having seen her, without even having talked to her on the phone. He wouldn't take me to her. He said she didn't want to see me. I can't believe that. He promised to tell her he had seen me, and to bring her to see me, if she would come, this evening at the hotel. He said he knew she wouldn't. He promised to come himself if she wouldn't. She broke off with a startled hand to her mouth as the door opened. The man who had opened the door came in a step, said, "Oh, excuse me," hastily took his brown hat from his head, and backed out. "It's all right, Miles," Spade told him. "Come in. Miss Wonderly, this is Mr. Archer, my partner." Miles Archer came into the office again, shutting the door behind him, ducking his head and smiling at Miss Wonderly, making a vaguely polite gesture with the hat in his hand. He was of medium height, solidly built, wide in the shoulders, thick in the neck, with a jovial, heavy-jawed red face and some gray in his close-trimmed hair. He was apparently as many years past 40 as Spade was past 30. Spade said, "Miss Wonderly's sister ran away from New York with a fellow named Floyd Thursby. They're here. Miss Wonderly has seen Thursby and has a date with him tonight. Maybe he'll bring the sister with him. The chances are he won't. Miss Wonderly wants us to find the sister and get her away from him and back home." He looked at Miss Wonderly. "Right. Yes," she said indistinctly. The embarrassment that had gradually been driven away by Spade's ingratiating smiles and nods and assurances was pinkening her face again. She looked at the bag in her lap and picked nervously at it with a gloved finger. Spade winked at his partner. Miles Archer came forward to stand at a corner of the desk. While the girl looked at her bag, he looked at her. His little brown eyes ran their bold, appraising gaze from her lowered face to her feet and up to her face again. Then he looked at Spade and made a silent, whistling mouth of appreciation. Spade lifted 2 fingers from the arm of his chair in a brief warning gesture and said, "We shouldn't have any trouble with it. It's simply a matter of having a man at the hotel this evening to shadow him away when he leaves, and shadow him until he leads us to your sister. If she comes with him, and you persuade her to return with you, so much the better. Otherwise, if she doesn't want to leave him after we've found her, well, we'll find a way of managing that." Archer said, "Yeah." His voice was heavy, coarse. Miss Wonderly looked up at Spade, quickly, puckering her forehead between her eyebrows. "Oh, but you must be careful." Her voice shook a little, and her lips shaped the words with nervous jerkiness. "I'm deathly afraid of him, of what he might do. She's so young, and his bringing her here from New York is such a serious. Mightn't he do something to her?" Spade smiled and patted the arms of his chair. "Just leave that to us," he said. "We'll know how to handle him." "But mightn't he?" she insisted. "There's always a chance." Spade nodded judicially. "But you can trust us to take care of that." "I do trust you," she said earnestly. "But I want you to know that he's a dangerous man. I honestly don't think he'd stop at anything. I don't believe he'd hesitate to kill Corinne if he thought it would save him. Mightn't he do that?" "You didn't threaten him, did you?" "I told him that all I wanted was to get her home before Mama and Papa came so they'd never know what she had done. I promised him I'd never say a word to them about it if he helped me. But if he didn't, Papa would certainly see that he was punished. I don't suppose he believed me, altogether. Can he cover up by marrying her?" Archer asked. The girl blushed and replied in a confused voice, "He has a wife and 3 children in England. Corinne wrote me that. to explain why she had gone off with him. They usually do, Spade said, though not always in England. He leaned forward to reach for pencil and pad of paper. What does he look like? Oh, he's 35 years old, perhaps, and as tall as you, and either naturally dark or quite sunburned. His hair is dark too, and he has thick eyebrows. He talks in a rather loud, blustery way and has a nervous, irritable manner. He gives the impression of being of violence. Spade, scribbling on the pad, asked without looking up, "What color eyes?" "They're blue-gray and watery, though not in a weak way. And oh, yes, he has a marked cleft in his chin. Thin, medium, or heavy build. Quite athletic. He's broad-shouldered and carries himself erect, has what could be called a decidedly military carriage. He was wearing a light gray suit and a gray hat when I saw him this morning." "What does he do for a living?" Spade asked as he laid down his pencil. "I don't know," she said. "I haven't the slightest idea. What time is he coming to see you?" "After 8 o'clock. "All right, Miss Wonderly, we'll have a man there. It'll help if—" "Mr. Spade, could either you or Mr. Archer?" She made an appealing gesture with both hands. "Could either of you look after it personally? I don't mean that the man you'd send wouldn't be capable, but oh, I'm so afraid of what might happen to Corinne. I'm afraid of him. Could you?" I'd expect to be charged more, of course." She opened her handbag with nervous fingers and put $200 bills on Spade's desk. "Would that be enough?" "Yeah," Archer said, "and I'll look after it myself." Miss Wonderly stood up, impulsively holding a hand out to him. Thank you," she exclaimed, and then gave Spade her hand, repeating, "Thank you." "Not at all," Spade said over it. "Glad to. It'll help some if you either meet Thursby downstairs or let yourself be seen in the lobby with him at some time." "I will," she promised, and thanked the partners again. "And don't look for me," Archer cautioned her. "I'll see you all right." Spade went to the corridor door with Miss Wonderly. When he returned to his desk, Archer nodded at the $100 bills there, growled complacently, "They're right enough," picked one up, folded it, and tucked it into a vest pocket. And they had brothers in her bag. Spade pocketed the other bill before he sat down. Then he said, "Well, don't dynamite her too much. What do you think of her?" "Sweet. And you telling me not to dynamite her?" Archer guffawed suddenly without merriment. "Maybe you saw her first, Sam, but I spoke first." He put his hands in his trousers pockets and teetered on his heels. "You'll play hell with her, you will." Spade grinned wolfishly, showing the edges of teeth far back in his jaw. "You've got brains, yes you have." He began to make a cigarette. 2. Death in the fog. A telephone bell rang in darkness. When it had rung 3 times, Spade reached sleepily from his bed for the phone. He said, "Hello, Mr. Spade? This is Tom Paulhouse." "Yes, Tom. Miles Archer has been shot." Spade sat up in bed. He was wide awake now. "Where?" "On Bush Street, just above Stockton." "I'm there now." "Dead?" "As a mackerel. He was shot through the heart with a heavy slug." Spade's face became hard and expressionless. "I'll be there in 15 minutes, he said. He hung up the receiver and began to dress. His movements were efficient and quiet. He put on a gray suit and a gray hat, then went into the kitchen and made himself a quick, strong cup of coffee. He drank it standing up, looking out the window at the fog that pressed against the glass like a damp gray ghost. When he reached the corner of Bush and Stockton, the fog was so thick he could barely see the streetlights. A small crowd had gathered, their faces pale and blurred in the mist. 2 police cars were parked at the curb, their red lights pulsing rhythmically. Spade pushed through the crowd. A tall, thick-set man in a heavy overcoat stepped out to meet him. It was Tom Paulhouse. "Tough break, Sam," Tom said. His voice was low and gravelly. Spade nodded. "Where is he?" Tom led him to the edge of the sidewalk, where a steep embankment dropped down toward the mouth of the Stockton Street tunnel. Archer's body lay huddled at the bottom of the slope, half hidden by a large billboard. Even from the top of the embankment, Spade could see the dark stain on Archer's coat. "Anyone see it happen?" Spade asked. "No," Tom said. "A guy living in the apartment house across the street heard the shot and called it in. By the time we got here, whoever did it was long gone." Spade looked down at his partner. His eyes were cold, calculating. He didn't look like a man who had just lost a friend. He looked like a man who was already looking for the next move. "What about the girl?" Spade asked. "What girl?" "The one he was tailing." "A Miss Wonderly." Tom shook his head. Haven't seen her. We found Miles's gun in his pocket. It hadn't been fired. He never even had a chance to pull it. Spade turned away from the edge of the slope. He looked at the surrounding buildings, their windows dark and silent. The fog seemed to swallow every sound. I'll have to go tell his wife, Spade said. Tom winced. I don't envy you that job, Sam. It's part of the business, Spade replied. He walked back to his car, his footsteps echoing on the damp pavement. As he drove away, the red lights of the police cars faded into the gray heart of the city. Three women. When Spade reached his office at 10 o'clock the following morning, Effie Perrine was at her desk opening the morning's mail. Her boyish face was pale under its sunburn. She put down the handful of envelopes and the brass paper knife she held to look at Spade with questioning eyes. He said, "Morning, Angel," and went into his inner office. She followed him in. "Ivor is here," she said. Spade stopped reaching for his swivel chair. His face became a wooden mask. "In there?" he asked, nodding toward the private door. "Yes. She's been there for half an hour. She's taking it hard, Sam." Spade made a face of distaste. "How did she find out?" "The police. They were at her house at 3 o'clock this morning. She's been trying to get you on the phone ever since." Spade stood looking at his desk for a moment. Then he sighed and went to the private door. He opened it and went in. Iva Archer was sitting at his desk. She was a blonde woman of 30-some years, her face pretty but now swollen and mottled from crying. She looked up with a start when he entered, her eyes widening. "Oh, Sam," she sobbed, and rose to stumble toward him. Spade caught her by the shoulders and held her off. "Easy, Iva. Easy. They told me Miles was—" She couldn't finish the sentence. She began to cry again, burying her face against his coat. Spade's expression was bored and a little impatient, but his voice was gentle enough when he spoke. "I know. I was there, Iva. I saw him." She pulled back to look at him, her eyes searching his face. Did you kill him, Sam?" Spade's yellow-gray eyes didn't even flicker. "What are you talking about?" "You know what I'm talking about. You didn't want him. You wanted me. You told me." "I never told you anything like that," he said flatly. He let go of her shoulders and walked around the desk to sit in his chair. "And you'd better be careful who you say that to. The police have already been here asking questions." She flinched as if he had struck her. You're so cold, Sam. Don't you care at all?" "I care about staying out of jail," he said. "And I care about finding out who shot him. Now, if you want to help, go home and stay there. Don't talk to anyone. Not the police, and especially not the newspapers. Do you understand?" She nodded slowly, her eyes still fixed on him with a mixture of fear and longing. "Effie will take you out the back way," Spade said. He raised his voice. "Effie." The girl appeared in the doorway. "Take Mrs. Archer down to a cab," Spade directed. "And see that she gets home all right." When they were gone, Spade sat for a long time staring at the closed door. Then he reached for his tobacco and began to roll a cigarette. His hands were perfectly steady. The Blackbird. The rest of the morning was a blur of police detectives and questions. Lieutenant Dundee and Tom Paulhouse were back, their eyes hard and suspicious. They wanted to know about the girl, Miss Wonderly, and they wanted to know where Spade had been between the time he left the scene of the murder and the time he arrived home. Spade told them as little as possible. He played the part of the grieving partner just well enough to keep them at bay, but he could tell Dundee wasn't buying it. After they left, Spade spent the afternoon scouring the city for Miss Wonderly. She wasn't at the St. Mark, and no one at the hotel had seen her since the previous evening. It wasn't until nearly 6 o'clock that he got the call. "Mr. Spade?" The voice was soft, trembling. "Yes, Miss Wonderly. It's Bridget O'Shaughnessy now," she said. "I'm at the Coronet Apartments. Apartment 403. Please, you must come. I'm so afraid." "I'll be there in 10 minutes, Spade said. The Coronet was a quiet, respectable building on California Street. When Spade knocked on the door of 403, it was opened almost immediately. The woman who stood there was the same one who had come into his office the day before, but the shy, hesitant manner was gone. In its place was a raw, naked terror. "Thank God you're here," she whispered, pulling him inside and locking the door behind him. The apartment was small but elegantly furnished. A fire was crackling in the grate, and the air was heavy with the scent of lilies. "What's happened?" Spade asked. "Thursby is dead," she said, her voice barely audible. "They shot him in front of his hotel an hour after Miles was killed." Spade's eyebrows went up. The police didn't tell me that. They don't know who did it. But I know. It was them. They're here, Mr. Spade. They followed me from Constantinople. Spade sat down on the sofa and looked at her. Who are they? She hesitated, her fingers twisting a lace handkerchief. A man named Joel Cairo. And another, a fat man. And what do they want? She looked at him with eyes that were suddenly sharp and calculating. They want the bird, Mr. Spade. The blackbird. Spade leaned back and crossed his legs. You'd better tell me the whole story, Bridget. And this time, try telling the truth. It makes things a lot easier in the long run. She began to pace the room, her blue silk dress swishing against her legs. It's a falcon, she said. A statuette of a falcon, made of gold and encrusted with jewels. It was a gift from the Knights of Malta to the Emperor Charles V in the 16th century. It's been lost for hundreds of years, but we found it. We found it in the house of a Russian general in Constantinople. And you stole it. We took it, she corrected him. But Cairo and the fat man, they want it for themselves. They'll kill anyone who gets in their way. They've already killed Miles and Floyd. Spade watched her for a moment, then he smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. And where is it now? This golden bird. She stopped pacing and looked at him. I don't have it, she said. Not yet. But I know who does. And I need you to help me get it before they do. It'll cost you, Spade said. I have money. And when we have the falcon, we'll be rich beyond our wildest dreams. Spade stood up and walked over to her. He took her chin in his hand and tilted her face up to his. I don't care about dreams, Bridget. I care about facts. And the fact is, you're in a lot of trouble. But I'll tell you what, I'll help you. For a price. She didn't flinch. She looked him straight in the eye and whispered, Anything, Sam. I'll give you anything. The Levantine. Spade's office was quiet until the late afternoon. He sat at his desk, the yellow-gray of his eyes matching the cooling ash of his cigarette. The door opened, and Effie Perrine came in. A Mr. Joel Cairo is here to see you, she said. She held a small, scented card in her hand. He says it's about the matter we discussed yesterday. Spade took the card. It smelled of gardenias. Show him in, Effie. Joel Cairo was a small-boned man, meticulously dressed. His skin was the color of a tea leaf, and his eyes were dark and humid. He moved with a quiet, cat-like grace. He carried a cane and a pair of yellow gloves. Mr. Spade, he said, his voice a high, thin reed. It is a pleasure to finally meet you. Spade didn't get up. Sit down, Mr. Cairo. What's on your mind? Cairo sat, placing his cane and gloves carefully on his lap. I am searching for a certain object, a statuette of a black bird. I believe you may have come into contact with it recently. A lot of people seem interested in that bird lately, Spade said. Cairo's smile was thin and nervous. I am prepared to offer you $5,000 for its return, Mr. Spade. No questions asked. $5,000 is a lot of money, Spade remarked. But I don't have the bird. Cairo sighed, a soft, whistling sound. That is unfortunate. I was hoping we could settle this matter quickly. You see, the people I represent are not very patient. Suddenly, Cairo's hand moved with surprising speed. He pulled a small, flat pistol from his pocket and pointed it at Spade's chest. I intend to search your office, Mr. Spade, Cairo said earnestly. I warn you that if you attempt to prevent me, I shall certainly shoot you. Spade did not look at the pistol. He raised his arms and, leaning back in his chair, intertwined the fingers of his hands behind his head. Go ahead. Spade's voice was empty of expression. You will please stand, Cairo instructed him. I shall have to make sure that you are not armed. Spade stood up, pushing his chair back with his calves. Cairo went around behind him. He patted Spade's pockets with one hand, while keeping the pistol pressed against his back. You are not armed, Cairo noted with some surprise. I don't like guns, Spade said. They make too much noise. Cairo finished his search of the office, turning over papers and looking through the desk drawers. He found nothing. He returned to the front of the desk, his face a mask of disappointment. It is not here, he whispered. I told you that, Spade said. Cairo lowered the pistol and tucked it back into his pocket. He picked up his cane and gloves. My offer remains open, Mr. Spade. $5,000. I am staying at the Hotel Belvedere, room 635. I suggest you think it over. He bowed stiffly and left the office. Spade sat back down and reached for his tobacco. 6. The undersized shadow. For half an hour after Joel Cairo had gone, Spade sat alone, still and frowning, at his desk. Then he said aloud, in the tone of one dismissing a problem, "Well, they're paying for it." He took a bottle of Manhattan cocktail and a paper drinking cup from a desk drawer. He filled the cup, drank it down, and then put on his hat and overcoat. As he stepped out onto the street, the fog was even thicker than the night before. He walked toward the ferry building, his collar turned up against the damp. He hadn't gone 2 blocks before he realized he was being followed. It was a small figure, an undersized shadow that stayed about half a block behind him, ducking into doorways whenever Spade turned his head. Spade didn't speed up. He led the shadow on a long, winding walk through the financial district, turning corners at random and doubling back on his own tracks. The shadow was good, but Spade was better. He slipped into the service entrance of a large hotel and waited in the darkness of the hallway. A minute later, the figure appeared in the doorway, peering into the gloom. Spade stepped out and grabbed the boy by the collar. He was young, maybe 20, with a pale, pinched face and eyes that darted around like a trapped animal's. "Who are you working for?" Spade growled, shaking him. The boy didn't say a word. He reached into his pocket, but Spade was faster. He twisted the boy's arm behind his back and pulled out a heavy .45 automatic. "A big gun for a little guy," Spade remarked. He tucked the pistol into his own pocket. "Now, I'll ask you again. Who sent you?" "Go to hell," the boy spat. Spade grinned. "Maybe later. Right now, you're going to take a message to your boss. Tell the fat man that I'm tired of being followed. If he wants to talk, he knows where to find me. But if I see you again, I'm going to take this gun and use it on you." "Understood." He gave the boy a shove that sent him sprawling onto the pavement. The boy scrambled to his feet and disappeared into the fog without looking back. Spade watched him go, then turned and walked toward the apartment where Bridget O'Shaughnessy was waiting. He had a feeling the game was about to get a lot more dangerous. 7G in the air. In his bedroom, which served as a living room now that the wall bed was up, Spade took Bridget O'Shaughnessy's hat and coat and made her comfortable in a padded rocking chair. He then telephoned the Hotel Belvedere and asked for Joel Cairo. When Cairo arrived, Spade shut the corridor door behind him and they went into the living room. Cairo bowed stiffly and said, "I am delighted to see you again, Miss O'Shaughnessy." "I was sure you would be, Joe," she replied, giving him her hand. They sat down, and Bridget wasted no time. "Sam told me about your offer for the Falcon. How soon can you have the money ready?" Cairo's eyebrows twitched. He smiled. "It is ready." "In cash?" the girl asked. "Oh yes," Cairo replied. He explained that while he didn't have the money in his pockets at that moment, he was prepared to get it on a few minutes' notice during banking hours. Spade, rolling a cigarette, added, "That's probably right. He had only a few hundred in his pockets when I frisked him this afternoon." The tension in the room remained high as they discussed the exchange. Spade played both sides, his face tranquil as he watched the two conspirators negotiate. However, the conversation was interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. It was the police, Lieutenant Dundee and Tom Paulhouse. Spade attempted to keep them out, but the situation took a violent turn. 8. Horse feathers. The police were about to leave when a voice in Spade's living room screamed, "Help! Help! Police! Help!" It was the high, thin, shrill voice of Joel Cairo. Lieutenant Dundee stopped and said decisively, "I guess we're going in." Sounds of a brief struggle and a blow came from inside. Spade stepped aside with a grim smile. Inside, they found Bridget O'Shaughnessy huddled in an armchair, terrified. Joel Cairo stood before her, bleeding from a cut lip and holding the pistol Spade had previously taken from him. Dundee was furious, suspecting a setup or a deeper crime. Spade, however, remained cool. He stood erect, looking down at the lieutenant with a taunting grin. "I dare you to take us in, Dundee," Spade challenged. "We'll laugh at you in every newspaper in San Francisco. You don't think any of us is going to swear to any complaints against the others, do you? Wake up. You've been kidded." Spade spun a story, claiming they had simply played a joke on the police to see how far they could string them along. Bridget began to laugh hysterically to support the ruse, and even Cairo forced a weak smile. Grumbling and unconvinced but unable to make an arrest without a complainant, Dundee and Paulhouse finally left. Once they were gone, Spade turned his attention back to Bridget. He was tired of the lies. "I'm so tired of it," she pleaded when he pressed her for more facts. "And I do so hate having to talk about it." Spade laughed. "I don't know. You'll have to figure that out for yourself." My way of learning is to gather the pieces as they come. She eventually admitted that she and Thursby were hired by a Russian named Khemedov in Constantinople to help get the Falcon. But according to her, Cairo had intended to desert them and take the bird for himself. 9. Bridget. Spade returned to the living room and sat on an end of the sofa, elbows on knees, cheeks in hands, looking at the floor and not at Bridget O'Shaughnessy, who was smiling weakly at him from the armchair. His eyes were heavy. "I'm sorry, Sam," she said softly. Spade did not look up. He said, "It's a long time until morning." "I'm sorry," she repeated. "I've been a—" "Don't let's keep it up," he said wearily. "I'm not Dundee. I don't need to be told you're sorry. I need to know what we're going to do." She rose and came over to the sofa, sitting beside him. She put a hand on his arm. Can't we?" "We can't do anything but wait," Spade said. He looked at her then, his yellow-gray eyes cold. "Unless you want to tell me the truth. Not a new story. The truth." She looked at him for a long moment. Then her eyes dropped. She began to speak, her voice low and steady. She told him of the bird, of the long trail from Constantinople to Hong Kong, and then to San Francisco. She spoke of the Russian, Khemedov, who had the Falcon, and how she and Thursby had tricked him. "But Joel Cairo, he was part of it too," she whispered. "And the fat man. They're the ones who really want it. They'll do anything, Sam. Anything." Spade listened, his face expressionless. When she finished, he stood up and began to pace the room. "And where is it now?" he asked. "I don't know," she said, and for once, he almost believed her. "Floyd had it. He was supposed to bring it to me. But then he was killed." Spade stopped pacing and looked out the window at the fog-shrouded city. "Someone has it," he said. "And if it's not you, and it's not Cairo, then it's the fat man. Or maybe someone we haven't met yet." He turned back to her. "You're going to stay here tonight. It's the only place you're safe." "Thank you, Sam," she said, her voice trembling. Spade didn't answer. He went into the kitchen and began to make more coffee. The Belvedere divan. Beginning day had reduced night to a thin smokiness when Spade sat up on the edge of the sofa. He looked at the girl. She was asleep in the armchair, her head tilted back, her breathing soft and regular. He watched her for a moment, then rose quietly and went into the bathroom. He washed his face with cold water, shaved, and brushed his hair. When he came back out, he was dressed and ready for the day. He went to the kitchen and began to cook breakfast. The smell of frying bacon eventually woke her. She came into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes, looking small and vulnerable in the morning light. "Good morning," she said. "Sit down," Spade said. "Eat." They ate in silence. When they were finished, Spade leaned back and lit a cigarette. "I'm going out," he said. "I want you to stay here. Keep the door locked. Don't answer it for anyone but me. I'll have a code." 3 knocks, a pause, then 2 more. "Where are you going?" she asked. "To see a man about a bird," Spade replied. He left the apartment and drove to the Hotel Belvedere. He went to the desk and asked for Joel Cairo. "Mr. Cairo checked out an hour ago, sir," the clerk said. Spade's eyes narrowed. "Did he leave a forwarding address?" "No, sir. But he did leave a message for a Mr. Spade, if he should call." The clerk handed him a small, sealed envelope. Spade opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with an address written in a precise, elegant hand. 1226, McAllister Street. Apartment 4. Spade tucked the note into his pocket and walked out of the hotel. The game was moving fast now, and he had to move faster if he wanted to stay ahead of it. He drove to the address on McAllister Street. It was a rundown apartment building in a quiet part of the city. He found apartment 4 and knocked on the door. A small, dark-haired boy opened it. He looked at Spade with suspicious eyes. "I'm looking for Mr. Cairo," Spade said. "He's not here," the boy said. "Tell him Sam Spade is here to see him," Spade said, pushing his way past the boy and into the room. The apartment was filled with the scent of gardenias. Joel Cairo was sitting on a divan in the center of the room, looking as if he hadn't slept a wink. "Mr. Spade," Cairo said, his voice more high-pitched than usual. "I was expecting you." "I'll bet you were," Spade said, sitting down in a chair opposite him. "Now let's talk about that $5,000. And let's talk about where the bird is." 11. The Fat Man. The door of Suite 12C at the Alexandria was opened by the boy Spade had disarmed the night before. His face was a white mask of hatred. "I'm expected," Spade said, and walked past him into the room. The room was large and comfortable. In the center sat a man who was most accurately described as a collection of pink bulbs. He was enormously fat, with a face that seemed to be made of dozens of small, quivering spheres. This was Caspar Gutman. "Ah, Mr. Spade," Gutman said, his voice a rich, oily purr. "I have been looking forward to this. Do sit down. A cigar? A drink?" "I'll take the talk first," Spade said, sitting opposite him. Gutman chuckled, his entire body shaking with the effort. "Direct. I like that. You want to know about the bird, of course. The Maltese Falcon. I want to know why people are dying for it," Spade corrected him. Gutman leaned forward, his eyes twinkling. "Because, sir, it is the most valuable object in the world. It is not just a bird. It is history. It is gold. It is jewels. It was a gift from the Knights of Malta to the Emperor Charles V in 1530. A glorious golden falcon, encrusted from head to foot with the finest gems. And where is it now? It has traveled many miles, Mr. Spade. From Malta to Sicily, to France, to Russia, and finally, to Constantinople, where a certain Russian general had it in his possession. He didn't know its value, you see. He thought it was just a curious black statuette." "Black?" Spade asked. "Enameled over, sir," Gutman whispered, "to hide its true nature from thieves. But I knew. I have spent 17 years searching for that bird. And now, thanks to Miss O'Shaughnessy and Mr. Thursby, it is here in San Francisco." Gutman paused, his smile growing broader. "The question is, Mr. Spade, who will have it in the end? I am prepared to offer you a great deal of money to ensure that it is me." "How much?" Spade asked. $50,000, Gutman said. "Or, if you prefer, a 25% share of whatever we realize from its sale. And I assure you, 25% will be much, much more than 50,000. Spade considered this. "And what do I have to do?" "You have the girl," Gutman said. "And I believe you know where the bird is. Bring them both to me, and we shall all be very wealthy men." 12. Merry-go-round. Spade left the Alexandria feeling as if he had just stepped off a carousel. The lies were piling up so high he could hardly see over them. He returned to his apartment to find Bridget O'Shaughnessy waiting. She was pacing the floor, her face pale. "Did you see him?" she asked. "Did you see the fat man?" "I saw him," Spade said. "He told me a very interesting story about a golden bird. Is it true, Bridget?" She stopped pacing and looked at him. "Yes," she whispered. "It's all true. The gold, the jewels, everything." "And where is it?" "I don't know," she cried. "I told you Floyd had it. He must have hidden it before he was killed." Spade grabbed her by the shoulders. "Listen to me. The police are breathing down my neck. Cairo is lurking in the shadows. And Gutman is offering me $50,000 to turn you over to him. If you want me to keep playing this game, you'd better start giving me something I can use." Before she could answer, the telephone rang. It was Effie Perrine. "Sam," she said, her voice tight with fear. "Someone's been at the office. They've torn the place apart. And there's a man here, a man named Jacoby. He's been shot, Sam. He's dying." "I'm on my way," Spade said. He turned to Bridget. "You're coming with me. And don't try anything. I've had enough of the schoolgirl act for one day." As they drove through the fog toward the office, Spade could feel the net tightening. The players were all on the board, and the final moves were about to be made. But in this game, no one played fair, and the prize was worth more than a human life. 13. The Emperor's Gift. Back in the Alexandria, Gutman settled his bulk into his chair and prepared to tell the story he had spent 17 years researching. In 1530, Gutman said, his voice a rich, oily purr, the Emperor Charles V gave the Knights of Rhodes the islands of Malta, Gozo, and Tripoli. In return, they were to pay him each year the tribute of one falcon in acknowledgement that Malta was still under Spanish sovereignty. Spade nodded. "I've heard that much. But they were Knights of the Order of the Hospital of St. John of Jerusalem." Gutman continued, his eyes twinkling. "They were crusaders. They were incredibly wealthy. They didn't send just a bird. They sent a golden falcon, encrusted from head to foot with the finest jewels in their possession. It was a masterpiece, Mr. Spade. A glorious, shimmering treasure. And what happened to it? It was captured by pirates. Then it appeared in the hands of a French minister. Then it vanished again, only to resurface in the possession of a Greek dealer. For centuries, it was painted over with black enamel to look like a common lead statuette, so that no one would know its true value." Gutman leaned forward, his face flushed with excitement. I traced it to a Russian general in Constantinople. He didn't know what he had. He thought it was a curiosity. I sent agents to get it, but they betrayed me. Miss O'Shaughnessy and Mr. Thursby took the bird for themselves. And now it's in San Francisco, Spade said. It is, sir. And it is worth more than any man's life. If you help me find it, I will make you a very rich man. If you don't, Gutman let the sentence hang in the air, his smile never wavering. Spade stood up. I'll think about it. But I don't like being threatened, Gutman. Keep that in mind. 14. La Paloma. Spade's office was a scene of chaos. Effie Perrine was pale, standing by the window. On the floor lay a man in a tattered captain's uniform. It was Jacoby, the captain of the La Paloma, a ship that had just arrived from Hong Kong. He had been shot multiple times. In his arms, he clutched a heavy bundle wrapped in newspaper and tied with coarse twine. He just walked in and fell. Effie whispered, her voice shaking. Spade knelt beside the man. Jacoby was dead. Spade reached for the bundle. It was heavy enough to be solid gold. He tore a corner of the paper away. Underneath was the smooth, dull black surface of a statuette. A bird. The Maltese Falcon. Is that it? Bridget whispered from the doorway. Her eyes were wide, filled with a mixture of greed and terror. This is it, Spade said. He stood up, the weight of the bird pulling at his arms. Suddenly, the telephone rang. It was a voice Spade didn't recognize, a woman, sounding frantic. Mr. Spade, you must come to the Burlingame station. They've got her. They've got Miss O'Shaughnessy's sister. Spade looked at Bridget. They're moving fast, he said. He handed the bundle to Effie. Put this in the safe. Don't tell anyone it's here. If I'm not back by morning, call the police. He grabbed his hat and pulled Bridget toward the door. We're going for a ride, he said. As they drove south through the night, the fog began to clear, revealing a cold, indifferent moon. Spade knew he was walking into a trap, but for the first time in the case, he held the winning card. Or so he thought. 15. Every crackpot. The drive to Burlingame was a fool's errand. Spade and Bridget O'Shaughnessy found the station deserted, the moon casting long, skeletal shadows across the empty tracks. There was no sister, no frantic woman, and no sign of Gutman's men. It was a plant, Spade said, his voice flat. He didn't sound surprised, he sounded annoyed. But the voice on the phone, she sounded so real. Bridget cried, clutching his arm. Spade shook her off and headed back to the car. Every crackpot in the city has probably been trying to get a piece of this. Or Gutman just wanted us out of the office for an hour. Let's go. They drove back to San Francisco in a silence that was thick with mutual distrust. Spade pushed the car to its limit, the tires screaming on the damp asphalt of the Peninsula Highway. When they reached the city, he didn't go back to the office. He went to his apartment. He checked his watch. It was after midnight. The city was quiet, but it was the quiet of a coiled spring. Stay here, he told Bridget. And this time, I mean it. If you walk out that door, you're on your own. I'm going to see if Effie's still at the office. Sam, don't leave me, she pleaded, but he was already out the door. 16. The third murder. Spade didn't go to the office. He went to a small, dingy hotel near the waterfront, the kind of place where people stayed when they didn't want to be found. He went to the room Jacoby had mentioned before he died. The door was unlocked. Inside, the room had been tossed. Drawers were pulled out, the mattress was ripped open, and the smell of gunpowder hung heavy in the air. In the corner, slumped against the wall, was a man. He was young, with a face that might have been handsome if it weren't twisted in a final expression of agony. It was the boy, the one who had followed Spade, the one Gutman had called Wilmer. He had been shot once, clean through the head. Spade didn't touch the body. He looked around the room until he found what he was looking for, a small, empty matchbook from the Alexandria Hotel. On the inside, a series of numbers was scrawled in lead pencil. The plot thickens, Spade muttered to himself. He pocketed the matchbook and slipped out of the room as quietly as he had entered. As he walked back to his car, he saw a black sedan pull away from the curb a block down. He didn't try to follow it. He knew where they were all going to end up. He drove back to his apartment, his mind clicking through the possibilities like a deck of cards. The boy was dead. Jacoby was dead. Archer was dead. Thursby was dead. 5 people had died for a blackbird that might not even be real gold. When he opened his apartment door, he found the lights on. Bridget was sitting on the sofa, but she wasn't alone. Casper Gutman sat in the armchair, his massive frame overflowing the sides. Joel Cairo sat on the window seat, a small pistol resting on his knee. "Welcome home, Mr. Spade," Gutman said, his voice as smooth as silk. "I believe you have something that belongs to us." 17. Saturday night. Spade stood in the center of his own living room, looking from Gutman to Cairo, and then to the girl. He didn't look like a man facing a loaded gun. He looked like a man who was about to close a deal. "I see we're all here," Spade said. Gutman beamed. "We are indeed, sir. And we are all, I trust, in a mood for negotiation." "The bird, Mr. Spade. Where is it?" "It's safe," Spade said. "But before we talk about delivery, we need to talk about a fall guy. The police have 3 murders on their hands: Archer, Thursby, and Jacoby. They aren't going to go away until they have someone to pin them on." Cairo's eyes darted toward the hallway. "And who do you suggest, Mr. Spade?" "The boy," Spade said flatly. "Wilmer. He killed Thursby and Jacoby. It's a clean wrap-up." Gutman's face lost some of its joviality. "The boy is like a son to me, sir." "Then you'll have to decide what you love more," Spade retorted. "The boy or the bird? Because you aren't getting one without giving up the other." 18. The fall guy. The night wore on in a tense, smoky stalemate. They sat in the small apartment, the air thick with the smell of Gutman's cigars and the silent calculations of everyone in the room. Eventually, the pressure broke Gutman. With a sigh that shook his entire frame, he agreed. Wilmer, realizing he had been sold out, lunged for Spade, but Spade was faster. He disarmed the boy and knocked him cold with a single blow. "Now," Gutman said, his voice trembling with a different kind of excitement. "The bird." Spade called Effie Perrine. It was early morning. He told her to bring the bundle from the safe to the apartment. When she arrived, she looked at the collection of criminals with wide, frightened eyes, handed the bundle to Spade, and fled. Spade set the bundle on the table. Gutman's hands shook as he produced a heavy pocket knife. He sliced through the twine and the newspaper. The black statuette stood revealed in the morning light. 19. The Russian's hand. Gutman didn't look at the beauty of the bird. He didn't look at its history. He took his knife and scratched deep into the surface of the bird's breast. His face went pale. He scratched again, more frantically this time. He carved a long, deep furrow in the side of the statuette. Underneath the black enamel, there was no gold. There were no jewels. There was only dull, gray lead. "It's a fake," Cairo wailed, clutching his head. "A counterfeit." Gutman sat back, the knife dropping from his hand. He looked older, smaller. "The Russian," he whispered. "Chemidov." He knew. He kept the original and had this made to lead us on a chase. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then, Gutman began to laugh. It was a dry, wheezing sound. "Well, sir," he said to Spade, regaining his composure. "It seems I have 17 more years of work ahead of me. Are you coming, Mr. Cairo?" Cairo stood up, his face a mask of misery, and followed the fat man out the door. Wilmer had already slipped away in the confusion. XX, if they hang you." Spade was alone with Bridget. He turned to her, his face as hard as the lead bird on the table. "They're gone," she whispered. "We're safe, Sam." "Safe?" Spade laughed. "You killed Miles, Bridget. You killed him, and you tried to pin it on Thursby, so we'd kill him for you." She backed away, her face turning white. "Sam, no. I loved you. I did it for us." "I don't care," Spade said. His voice was a low, rhythmic growl. "I'm a detective. When a man's partner is killed, he's supposed to do something about it. It doesn't make any difference what you thought of him. He was your partner, and you're supposed to do something about it." He walked to the telephone and began to dial. "If they hang you," Spade said, looking at her one last time, "I'll always remember you." He completed the call. "Hello, police. This is Sam Spade. I have the person who killed Miles Archer. Come and get her." Epilogue. Monday morning at the office was gray and quiet. Effie Perrine sat at her desk, her eyes red from crying. She looked at Spade as he walked in. "Is that what the papers have, right?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." He sat at his desk. His face was pasty, but his eyes were clear. "You did that, Sam?" To her. He nodded. "Your Sam's a detective." He looked at her, then reached out and put his arm around her waist. "She did kill Miles, Angel," he said gently. Offhand like that. He snapped his fingers. She escaped from his arm as if it had hurt her. "Don't. Please, don't touch me," she said brokenly. "I know you're right. But don't touch me now. Spade's face became as pale as his collar. The corridor door's knob rattled. Effie turned and went into the outer office. When she came back, she said in a small, flat voice, "Iva is here." Spade, looking down at his desk, nodded. "Send her in."